As we will elect a new mayor after 16 years with Jill Teckle at the helm. There are 3 candidates for the office of mayor this year, and they're here with us at the Wind Down Media Studios tonight. Let me, before we introduce them, acknowledge Will and Jalissa Marcencia, the owners of KVON and KVYN, for reviving the tradition of local political coverage for the community on these radio stations. And we would also like to welcome you as a listener and a viewer of this program. The audio, of course, is live on 1440 KVON. And the radio with pictures is available on Napa Valley TV, Channel 28, as we're familiar with. And also you can find a feed on their website at napavalleytv.org if you're listening on the radio and you'd like to see the visuals as well. Thanks to Napa Valley Television for partnering with us on this. Now, before we get started, we do have the opportunity for you as a viewer or listener to send in a question by text or email. So here comes the number to text to 1-844-333-6993. The email is info@winddownmedia.com. Once again, the text line is 1-844-333-6993, and the email is info@winddownmedia.com. We already have several questions that have been emailed or texted to us for the candidates, and we'll try and work them in tonight. If we don't get to your question, just because of time. Here's the way it's going to work tonight, candidates and everyone watching and listening. After 90-second opening statements, I'll ask a series of questions, and each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. We'll rotate who goes first, and about midway through the time that we have, which is 1 hour, we're going to give each candidate the opportunity to ask one of the other candidates a question. You can choose which candidate you ask a question of when that opportunity comes. And the candidates are, and we'll introduce them now. First, closest to me here at the end of the dais is Doris Gentry, City Council member, businesswoman, and teacher. In the center of the dais is Gerardo Martin, financial advisor. And at the end of the dais, furthest from me, is Scott Sedgley, City Council member and retired firefighter. Now for the opening statements, again, 90 seconds for each person. We'll do this in alphabetical order to get started. And that means Doris Gentry, you get to go first. You have 90 seconds.
All right. Well, good evening, and thank you so much, Barry Martin, Will and Jalissa, and the wonderful people watching from home and listening on the radio. It's a pleasure to be here this evening, and I look forward to the questions that will be asked of each of us. And I'm really excited that this is our only live debate where we're actually sitting here in person. It's really fun to have it happen that way. I am a Napa resident, foster mom. I've had 200 teen boys in my house, a few girls sprinkled in now and then. Hey to the girls that have been there. And I love Napa. I live here. I choose to live here. And it's just an honor and a privilege to be a part of this community, to be a part of the tapestry of Napa. I have a strong business background. I'm not a typical politico. I am more of a locals. And it's just been so fun to be on the city council, talk to the residents, deal with the emails and the questions that so many people have. And tonight, as we talk about the questions, I'll look forward to the answers. So the beep means I'm done.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
I'll signal you if you don't
Okay.
hear the beep. We do have a timekeeper helping us out tonight.
Gotcha.
Second, with the opening statement, Gerardo Martin.
Thank you, Barry. I'd like to start out with the moment of silence for a gentleman that passed away yesterday, Juan Adrian Garcia. Thank you. I was born and raised here in Napa Valley, and I think we all have this moment in our life where things are changing, and you just don't know why, but they're changing. And for me, it was 2001. I was sitting in my living room. It was early morning Saturday, and my kids were camping out in the living room, and that was the first day that I was a single dad. And I was sitting there, and I was thinking, Christ, what am I going to do now? And in that moment, I didn't know at the time, but things were going to change. and I had faith that things were going to change. Subsequently, I ended up going back to school and changing careers from 22 years working at Safeway to a career in financial planning in 2006. I continued to raise my kids as a single father. They went to schools here in Napa, played soccer. It was a real, when I think about Napa, I just think about the community and the families. I reinvigorated the Napa County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I was president for many years there. I was president at the Napa Valley College Foundation. And
that's time. Thank you.
All right.
All right. And thirdly, Scott Sedgley, opening
Thank
statement.
you very much, and thank you, Wind Down Media, for this opportunity. Most of you know me. I think most of you met me over the years. I grew up in Napa. I attended Snow Elementary School by the old KVO station, Ridgeview Junior High School, and graduated from Napa High School. I went to the Napa Valley Community College for a year, but then I found my strength was in trade school, so I entered a trade school. 13 years in carpentry. I met Linda, who I like to say was born on Jefferson Street. And her and I have been married 45 years, and we've raised 2 beautiful children, have 2 grandchildren. I've been a lifelong servant to the community. I've been involved with several nonprofits and several foundations. I spent 30 years with the Napa Fire Department, and during that time I was a Napa Valley Unified School District Board of Trustee. The fire department, I did everything imaginable. I created a smoke detector program, a free giveaway for smoke detectors, because that was what we needed in every house. So just community involvement's been my life. I was 22 years as a captain with the Napa Fire Department. So learned a little bit about leadership. I think that leadership has been recognized around the community by my list of endorsements from our wonderful Mayor Jill Teckel, our congressman, our senator, our assembly member, and all the board of supervisors. If you can imagine, all of the supervisors have agreed on me. So I'm pretty pleased with that, and all the mayors in the county too. So excited for my next step. 8 years on council. Jill has endorsed me and recognized as I'm ready to do the job. I'm excited to do so.
And that's time. Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. Before we go to our first question, I want to point out that all the candidates agreed to do this debate without wearing masks tonight. We have good social distancing here in the room and excellent ventilation here at the studios, and staff and people in the background are keeping masks on, and we're practicing all the appropriate measures. But for the sake of being able to hear everybody clearly and give the candidates the advantage to be seen, we decided to agree with that and go with no mask tonight. So we'll go with Gerardo Martin to answer this next question first. Yeah. And here it comes, and you have 90 seconds. Describe one specific type of training or experience that makes you the best person to be mayor of Napa.
Thank you. That's a great question, Barry. First of all, I do this every day. I do financial planning. I do budgeting with my clients. I take a look at all the different aspects of their financial world. In the city, we're facing a financial crisis like we've never seen before. Nothing could have prepared either one of these candidates for what's going on right now. It's an important thing to be able to not only look at the budget, understand the budget, but also make some plans and follow through with those plans. That's what's really I've been focusing on all my years, plus working with the small businesses, working with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, as well as the College Foundation as a president there. Those are the things that have helped me prepare for being mayor.
All right, good. If you're finished, we'll move on. Scott Sedgley, your question next.
Well, I've walked the walk. I've been doing council work for 8 years. I serve on several boards and commissions, from Napa Valley Transit Authority to the Napa Solano Waste Management Authority. I serve on the Regional Planning Commission with the Association of Bay Area Governments. So, there's nothing like experience to teach you how to do the job. You start out before you're a journeyman, you're an apprentice. Before you're the principal, you're a teacher. Before you're a mayor, you're a council member. And that's what I've been working towards. We've been through floods, earthquakes, fires, and now a pandemic. I've experienced them all. I've worked in the Emergency Operations Center. I've served operational positions during those emergencies. So I must just say I've walked the walk, and I have the experience to do the job.
Very good. And Doris Gentry.
So I love that question. And like you, I feel that my commitment to the community, my tireless work in nonprofits and raising money for foster kids, coupled with my 20 years of working for Napa Valley College, has created within me such a passion for this community, such a desire to build Napa to be bigger and better, bigger in programs and services to those who need it, and better in offering more wisdom for investing the funds that we have. Each of you watching pay taxes, and we use those tax dollars to build our city. So I'm the best candidate to do that job, and I've worked my entire life for this moment. Thank you.
All right, excellent. And next we go to our second question, and Scott Sedgley, you'll be the first to answer on this one. And the question this time is this. There are known to be at least 400 homeless people living in cars and tents around the city of Napa. It's likely that the pandemic and the economic impacts will raise that number in the future. And seeing what other communities have experienced even before the pandemic and the growth of homelessness, with as much specifics as you can provide, how can Napa confront the growing homelessness problem?
It's a difficult problem that a lot of communities are facing. We're blessed with a mild climate here, so I think it's easier to be homeless if being homeless is easy at all. But the city we're opening the Heritage House. It's a permanent supportive housing operation we're going to do up at the old Sunrise Assisted Living is one step. We have one outreach coordinator that works through the police department. It's a full-time employee. I propose we, grow that staff. It's finding the resources and matching the resources with the individual. And our outreach coordinator, he can do that. He'll ask an individual, do you have family in town? Do you have family nearby? Can I contact them? And so often we can find some resources available through the individual's own family. We're trying to put people up. The state hospital property is another good option that we can maybe land some permanent housing on state property. But it's a problem that has been facing us and growing, as you say, and we're not going to solve it overnight. Outreach, connecting to resources, and having the resources that we can offer is the only solution.
And Doris Gentry, you get to go second on this one.
Okay, I love that question about homeless. As a child, there were many, many times that I was homeless, that I did not have a place to go. Homeless in Napa is a problem. It's a real problem, and our current system is broken because we're not solving the problem. We need to help our homeless get their feet underneath them. We need to help with mental health services and medical services. We're doing a really good job of identifying and locating our homeless, but we need to do a better job of housing and offering places for them. So specifically, I'm an advocate for offering safe places for people that choose to live in their vehicle. One of my foster sons, I'll tell you real quick, lived in his vehicle at Napa Valley College, continued to go to school. I continued to help him, and he graduated with an AA degree and walked the aisle. So there are ways we can help them. Many of the homeless have lived in my house, and when I work at the food banks and the feeding programs at First Presbyterian, I see some of my kids that were in my home. So we need a real solution, and we need to help people with their systemic poverty and their crisis that they're living in. We need to help people get out of the ditch in a permanent way. Thank you for that question, Barry.
Mm-hmm. And Gerardo, your turn.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, in walking around the neighborhoods, I think a lot of people have been asking that exact same question. What can we do? So there's a lot, and to be honest, I mean, there's a lot of people that are just one paycheck away from being homeless in Napa right now. So this election is so important to you, because this is what we have to start working on, and making sure that we can create an economy that works for you. But places like Las Vegas and places like Santa Rosa, they have really, really great programs that they've been, and they've partnered up with the county, they've partnered up with the state, they've partnered up with nonprofits. That's what we have to do here in Napa. They have the tiny homes in Santa Rosa. It's a place where homeless people that don't have homes right now can actually go and stay there. It's a safe place. but then creating job training for them. Job training, counseling, the medical services, all of those things, it kind of has to come an entire community has to put it together and has to focus on what is the issue and how can we move forward. We can't continue to just provide certain services. It's almost like we're just putting a Band-Aid on it and not really addressing the problem. And I think if we address the problem, we could fix it. It'll actually be less expensive to do the things I'm talking about than to continue to do the things that we're doing right now and creating more homeless as in the process.
All right, thank you, candidates. And let's move on to our next question. This time we have Gerardo Martin going first, Doris going first on this one. The city is looking at the possibility of a long and slow economic recovery from the pandemic. For city operations, employee layoffs or furloughs have been avoided so far. Do you think going forward that layoffs or furloughs for city employees will be required to balance the city budget?
You know, that is a great question, Barry. And just like you face with the theater group, with every single person that is facing a financial crisis, we have to get out there and cut. You know, we cut our expenses, and our city must cut expenses. We are about to get a new budget. We're about to have it revealed to us. We've called a special city council meeting in about 2 weeks. We have a special city council meeting to look at the reality of what this budget is. We do not currently know what the budget is going to be. The numbers have not yet rolled in. So we can't say exactly what we need to do, but we do need the whole council and the entire city operations to take a look at ways we can cut and ways we can live within our means. I want to make it very clear, I do not support raising taxes. I do not support a wealth tax. I do not support taxing second homes. I do not support adding layers of taxes and increasing the burden on each of you that's watching, turning to you to dip another $1 or $5 into our city budget. We need to live within our means, and whatever our budget is, we must live within that price point. Thank you.
All right, Gerardo Martin, you're next.
Thank you. That's a really good question. And one of the things that I learned in working with the Small Business Recovery Task Force, we were meeting weekly since March, since this started. And we were trying to find creative ways to open our businesses and to get the economy going again. But one of the things that we learned there is that everything changes daily with COVID.
Yep.
COVID is not something that we have a playbook. At least not this time. Maybe next time we'll have a playbook, but right now we don't. So when fiscal responsibility is one of the things that I preach. I preach to my clients. I preach to everybody I know. And just really making sure that we're tightening the belt. Many of you lost 1 or 2 jobs while this is going on, and we've had to make budget cuts in our own homes and maybe cut cable and maybe hopefully not cable because hopefully you guys are watching this, but we've really made sure that we've cut some of the fat. And what we have to focus on in the city is, again, things are changing every day, so we're not exactly sure where we're going to be able to cut or where we're going to have to cut. So I know that our best days are ahead of us, but right now we have to look at it kind of on a day-by-day or week-by-week basis. And if there's any cuts that we have to make, I think we have to be very transparent about them.
And Scott Sedgley.
Thank you. Yeah, we were very fortunate to avoid the layoffs that we did by freezing some positions. Really helped that. We had a department head that retired that we didn't fill. That was the whole debate about the Parks and Recreation Commission. We were never planning to eliminate Parks and Recreation. We just reorganized a bit as a cost-saving measure. Recovery is my highest priority, and we've been working with the business owners and the restaurants downtown. You've seen with the closure of that section of Main Street to help. The parklets are helping. We're doing a lot with food service mixed with tasting rooms, so some of those can stay open. That's the whole thing, is we need to help those businesses survive this turmoil. There's never been a lot of fat. I've been in city government for a while and with the fire department for 30 years, and there's people speak of fat. There's never a whole lot of fat. Sometimes revenue is good, and you can expand some programs, and capital improvement projects come about. Right now, we're not going to do any capital improvement projects. Those will be put on the hold. In deferred maintenance. That's what always happens. That's what we got in a little bit of trouble with our streets and sidewalks because of deferred maintenance. So that will happen again. But all those measures on belt tightening will get us through this. We'll see the numbers coming in from tax revenue and TOT. Hopefully it's better than what we had planned for. We always plan for the worst, and if it's a little better, we'll be fortunate. But that's what we're doing.
Very good. Moving right along, Gerardo Martin, you get
Yes.
to go first on this next question. And it is specific about property in the southwestern quadrant of the city that's known as the Gisletta property. It's one of the last large undeveloped parcels inside the city limits. And what I'm going to ask each of you to address in as much detail as possible, what do you believe should happen in the future on that specific property?
Thank you, Barry. In the future, and we're talking in the far future, I think it probably will end up being developed. For right now, I think we need to focus on building in and up. When we looked at the Ag Preserve back in the 1960s, there was a picture that when I did Leadership Napa Valley, there was a picture of Santa Clara County and Napa County. They looked exactly the same with orchards and a lot of open space. Now you look at Santa Clara, and it's very built out. It's very urban, and that's fine if that's what you like. But here in Napa, I think we like our open spaces. We have to be careful with the environment as well. So I think if we instead of building out there, I think if we build inside the town, there's a lot of places in town that need to be redeveloped, and I think the general plan is working on that. I think that would be a much better way to use our resources. Plus, police and fire department aren't as spread out, so keeping things closer to town, I think it makes it safer as well.
All right, thank you. Moving on to Scott Sedgley.
Yeah, one clarification, that property is not in the city limits at this time. It's inside the RUL. When they established the RUL, the rural urban line, when it was established, that project was brought inside, and it was anticipated to be housing. When they brought it in, 2 general plans ago, it has never been annexed for various reasons. So that's the first step to do anything out there. It has to be annexed into the city. But it has been a property, kind of looked at for housing. We have state regional housing needs assessment, RENA numbers you hear, where each community has to build so many houses. And I believe that property has to be scrutinized and considered for that. It's on transportation. There is municipal services available, meaning water and sewer. There's a brand new school next to it. The middle school is within walking distance, so really it's an ideal place for some well-planned, complementary, appropriate, compatible, however you want to look at, but I think it has to be looked at in the big scope of things for future housing due to our RENA numbers. We don't have, Gerardo, Mr. Martin says we have all these other spots to build housing in town. Well, we simply don't. And infill is happening. We're filling those projects up, but it'll have to be looked at eventually.
And thank you for fact-checking me in real time on the question. I was indeed wrong. Of course, it is inside the RUL, not the city limit. And Doris Gentry gets the last crack at this question.
So I love the Gisletta family. I love that piece of land, but I do oppose the development of that piece of land for housing. I think that when you drive into the city of Napa and you see all the wineries and you see the river and you see the beautiful Oreo cows, I think that is a vision that should not be messed with. And if the project, we're going to discuss a possible 20-foot berm wall with a forest of trees on the top, then maybe we could have a conversation. But then there's another really critical problem. If we put 500 or 700 houses down there, what will we do for fire protection? Because that is pretty far away from the closest fire department, which is here by the movie theaters. So I think there are a lot of issues to be overcome to look at that for housing on the Gisletta property. At this particular time, I'm completely opposed to it. And I think we have plenty of new houses going in at the Napa pipe. Can somebody jumpstart the Napa pipe project? Could somebody start turning over dirt over there? We were promised a Costco in the spring. We've been promised this, promised that. Where are the houses at Napa pipe? That would really take a lot of pressure off of housing for residents in this community. Thank you.
Very good. I'm going to squeeze in a question from a listener viewer, and I'm going to remind everybody who is listening and viewing, you can text us or email a question. If you're going to do that, do it now because we won't have time to get it in if you wait longer. The text line is 1-844-333-6993, and the email address is info@winedownmedia.com. And one of the questions we received is this, and it's for everybody, and this is going to throw off my who goes first a little bit, so bear with me. Scott Sedgley, I think you get to go first on this one. And the question is, what initiatives can you as mayor support and advocate for individuals with disabilities, veterans, and those reentering the workforce in the city of Napa?
Well, that's not an easy one to ask. I mean, we're doing with our sidewalk program. You may have seen all around town how we're making we're changing all the curbs at corners to approaches. I mean, that helps our elderly, it helps our disabled, it helps our children. That's a great initiative. I think internships in government where people can, retired annuitants, all those programs that we could benefit from their experience, their knowledge, and their capabilities to bring that workforce back in is a great opportunity. A lot of agencies have done that. So other than those type of initiatives, it's just that accessibility, it's programs, it's our senior center. I've been working for years on the modernization of our senior center. So we did do the first phase. Funding has kind of slowed up for us to get into the second phase, but that's such an asset to our community. So those groups that sometimes feel that they're passed by, they're left behind. We just need to make sure our REX program and all of us are there watching. And even when I responded as a firefighter, we would identify individuals when we went to their house and provide services in some avenues for them to access things.
All right, very good. And next is Doris on that question.
Okay, so I love this question. At Napa Valley College, we have a tremendous program, a reentry work program, a training program for veterans. And in addition to that, there are many veterans that are homeless out in our community. Each of us know people by the first name that are veterans that are homeless, and we need to do a lot more work accessing mental health services and services for the veterans. They can qualify for housing for Section 8. We have to help people get back up on their feet. And we have a lot of veterans that are in homes that are bored and that feel they're of no more use. So we need to get busy to get people excited and active and participating. I love our senior center and the work we do there. Many of the other senior facilities have recreation programs, and there are many ways to get our senior adult community out and engaged and involved. And one of the best ways is through our community garden program. Our master gardeners and people have a lot of community garden programs, and that is a wonderful way to get seniors out and involved in their community. Thank you so much.
And Gerardo Martin.
Thank you. Accessibility is the key, and I think the city is working hard on for disabled people in Napa, making the sidewalks accessible and making it more of a walkable city. But I think there's still more work to do on that. Napa Valley College, you're right, Napa Valley College, I was on the foundation there. They do a tremendous job with the workforce reentry. I think we need to enhance our trades here. We have a lot of construction going on, and I think our trades for people that are trying to get re-entered into the workforce, I think that would be a great way to start as an apprentice and work your way up. The senior center, again, we can do more. We can do more with our senior center. We can do more for our seniors. We can enhance our medical services here in Napa so that our seniors don't have to leave town or leave the county to
Yes.
get certain medical services. I think that those are some of the key things that we need to work on. Again, going back to the trades and creating opportunities for people that want to get back into the workforce, whether it's veterans or just somebody that's changing jobs. I think we could really do a much better job working with the SBDC. If somebody wants to become an entrepreneur, I think those are things that a lot of our veterans and a lot of our re-entering into the workforce people would love to have.
All right, very good. So now we're about halfway through our time for the mayoral debate, and I'd like to insert the crosstalk question, as I mentioned earlier, where each candidate's got an opportunity to ask one of the other candidates one question, and then that candidate will have a chance to respond. And we're going to allow about 2 minutes on this, I think, for the entire package, so you can frame your question and an adequate amount of time for the response, okay? And it's Doris's turn to go first, so you may ask a question of either of the other candidates.
Gerardo Martin, I'd like to ask you a
Yes,
question.
absolutely.
I heard you give an explanation of this the other day. Everybody on the earth is saying to me, why did he jump in this so late? And it was a good answer that you gave, and I'd like to hear you share that answer again.
Yeah, thank you, Doris. It's a great question. So as this pandemic began to unfold, I'm a financial advisor, and so I get updates on the global economy every day, several times a day. And as this started to unfold, I got a call from somebody from the city, and I sat on a call with the mayor and the Steve Potter, the city manager, and several other people. And we were talking about this pandemic had just started, and it was early March, and the city hadn't shut down yet, and what we were going to do. And I think that, that's got me thinking about what were we going to do? And as things continued to unfold, I just kept looking around and saying, okay, well, what's going to happen here? If the global economy is starting to shrink and the national economy is starting to shut down, Napa's starting to shut down, we're going to have a $20 million shortage next year. What's going to happen? And no offense to anybody, I just know that I have the skills and the financial background to make sure that I can at least do the best I can to help the city get through this. This is not going to be something that's going to be very easy to do, but I know that I have the ability to do it. I have the work ethic to do it, and I have your best interest at heart here. So that's why I jumped in when I did. It wasn't late. I was the first one to pull my papers. And our campaign is doing very well, and thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you.
All right, and we stay with you, Gerardo, to
Yes.
ask a question of one of the other candidates.
Scott, let me ask you a question. So all the years that you've been on city council, we've had this housing crisis that we all three have been talking about. What have you done specifically to help the housing crisis, and how do you see it in your view as the things that you were able to do to kind of curve that or fix it or help it?
Yeah, you've mentioned in a lot of your material that the housing crisis is a result of failed policies over the last 10 years. And that's truly not knowing what you're talking about when you make that comment. The housing crisis comes to us because of a lot of factors. We have a agricultural preserve, we have an RUL that limits our growth, and then we're in a very desirable place to live. So a lot of people want to live here. So that drives up the cost of housing. It's a free market that we work in, and so as housing gets more expensive, it gets harder for people to live here. And that's just the fact of the matter. It's not from failed policy or anything else. It's just that it's a desirable place to build, and now it's a more expensive place to build because the labor force is lacking. We've done all we could do with zoning. We've done higher density zoning in areas. We've done, the ADUs and the junior ADUs have been kind of over-talked, but those are steps that we get forward. But I think the biggest thing that I can take credit for is we've increased densities. You know, when a piece of property used to be maybe an R4 or an R2, now we might be at an R8. So you'll see a lot of these developments now, they're much more dense. They don't have the backyards. They don't have the big backyards anymore. And we're going to lose the front yard soon. It's just the fact of it. So that's what I've accomplished is higher densities because we don't have the room to grow out.
Very good. And Scott Sedgley, your turn to ask a question.
Well, I'll throw one back at Mr. Martin. You know, this office is not partisan, so to speak, but everybody knows kind of where our party lines line up, and you and I are Democrats. And I spoke with you early on, and you and I agreed that Doris would be not the best choice for mayor. You and I both agreed that, and so I asked you about, well, would you be willing to throw your support to me? And you said, no, why don't you throw your support to me? So we didn't get anywhere. But then we both went after the Democratic Central Committee and the Democratic Club for endorsements. I received both of those. We went to the Latinx Democratic Club that you organized, and you failed to get their endorsement. Why did you not get the endorsement of the Latinx Democrats?
You know what? That's a good question, Scott, and I'm glad you asked that. You know, there's this system. There's a system that precludes people from, you know, you're going up against a system, really. When I threw my hat in the ring, it was because I want to do the best thing for the city. And I'm glad that Scott asked this question, because when I talked to him, he was more concerned about all the people that had already backed him than him actually running. And when the question was asked, why don't you back out? He said, well, I can't because there's too many people already backing me and they've worked so hard. So the reason that I'm running is because I know that I can do a good job for this. And no offense, Doris, but that conversation did take place. I know we're all in this, the three of us have we all have this big heart that wants to do the best for the city. You could see the difference between me and Scott. You could see the difference between me and Doris. And I just hope that I can earn your vote, because the reality is Scott got a lot of endorsements way early in the game when it was just him against Doris. And that's the reality of it.
Thank you. That's time. Very good. Thank you for your crosstalk. That really sparked things up. We're going to move on to some other
we can't go
categories.
back and forth,
And I want to say to our folks listening and watching, we've received an overwhelming number of questions, and I am told from offstage we won't get to them all. We'll do our best to incorporate some of your questions into things we'd already planned to ask about. So we're going to go next to, let's see, make sure I've got the right order here. I believe Gerardo will be the first to answer our next question. I'm going to synchronize here. There are a number of questions that have come from the audience that have to do with racism and prejudice. The question that I had written in advance is this, so I'll use this to springboard for it, and 90 seconds to answer for each of you on this. The city recently passed a resolution declaring that systemic racism is a public health emergency locally. As mayor, and again with as many specifics as possible, how would you take local action to reduce systemic racism?
That's a great question, and I'm glad that the resolution was passed. I question the timing of it. It's right before an election, and that's why I believe it was passed. But nonetheless, I'm glad it's passed, and I'm glad that I will be working with the city as mayor to enforce that. One of the things that I looked at was in April of 2013, a report came out, and it was from Live Healthy Napa Valley or Napa County. And it was a Napa County Comprehensive Community Health Assessment. And so a lot of the things that Dr. Smith was talking about when she spoke to the city council was exactly on that report. So that report has been out since 2013, and it talked about the differences in certain neighborhoods. So what we have to do is we have to look at the city as a whole and find a way where we can really kind of take a look at what systemic racism has done to the city, because it's been around for a long time, and how can we fix it. It's not about equality, it's about equity. And I think that most of your audience, most of the people here can understand the difference between equality and equity. So I think that's where we start. We start making sure that everything is equitable and inclusive.
All right, thank you. Next, Scott Sedgley on that question.
Yeah, the first thing that I had to do was admit it. As a white male growing up in Napa, for me, I never felt that I was racist. I don't believe my actions ever showed that. But it was a realization that, I have had an advantage. I've had an advantage over a lot of people of color. And so admitting that is the first step for a lot of us to do that. And that was the first step that the council took, was in our resolution to say, it's a health crisis. And so we're starting internally. We started with our police officers and our police force on reviewing all policies on use of force there. Had to make sure that, that any certain demographic was not being treated differently. So that's a start. I think the city has done, and I'm only speaking my own organization, and I hope other organizations follow the lead, but in our hiring practices, the outreach, the internships, all we've done. I think the city of Napa has done a pretty good job. We're at about 22% now of full-time employees that are Latinx. And so, but it's really going to boil down to the next generation, the education and youth, Taylor's children. There's hope. You got to look for those next generations that in our schools, our teachers. I know they do it. They do it daily to teach that acceptance, that inclusion. A lot of us, you've seen in the local media some of the letters that had came back and said, "I'm not a racist. I'm not a white privilege. Don't tell me that." We received one from Idaho. For goodness sake, that this guy. So I think the hope is our next generation, and educate and love them.
All right. Thank you. And Doris, your chance.
I'm really glad you asked that question, because we did just vote on that, and I received a lot of angry emails from people saying Napa is not racist. I'm going to tell you that all across America there is racism. And racism is real, but we individually can stop that in our own homes and with our own children and with our own families and relatives. We individually have the power to put our passion and our love and our heart forward to be inclusive and embrace other people. So I think racism is something that our city has fought to not be racist. We have fought to be inclusionary, and we have been at the forefront, I think, as far as other cities in the county. I think we are at the forefront of being non-racial. And as a white woman growing up in business, I had plenty of racism against me in many aspects. A lot of people talked about when I said, I was homeless and people made fun of me. I was also a white woman in a business, and I worked with the Women's Entrepreneurial Institute of the Small Business Administration back in the day when women going into business was supposed to be a beauty salon or a daycare. So racism and discrimination has been going on forever. My time is up. Thank you.
I'm going to stay on the theme here for a moment again, because several of our listeners and viewers have asked questions on these same themes. So I want to stay with this for a moment. And I believe it is now going to be Scott's turn to go first. Am I correct on that? Sort of a long question. Stay with me, and we'll start the timer after I'm done with the question. Events of the last few months have brought a lot of new attention to Napa and having history as a sundown town and a history of racism. It goes back very far into our past. More recently, in 1989, there was a group called the White Aryan Resistance that tried to hold an Aryan Woodstock here in Napa. 30 years later, we're still having incidents with students showing off swastikas on social media photos, people who display the Confederate flag here in the city driving around town. What is your position on white supremacist groups like the Three Percenters, Patriot Prayer, Proud Boys, and others?
Well, they have no place in our community or in any community in America, and they have to be denounced and pointed out from our president on down. When we displayed the rainbow flag at City Hall, I was asked, well, what if the Aryan Nation wants to display their flag? And then I just say, well, we say no, you can't do it. It's pretty simple. But that's the fact, that it needs to be pointed out and routed out. And unfortunately, I think social media, and the ease of sitting at home in your armchair and firing out hatred and racism, and there's no accountability for it. I think it's helped grow that. And it's, I know it's a First Amendment, right, free speech. I can get down in the corner and I can shout out what I want to. But you know what? We need to shout back, and I'm going to shout back. We don't need that here, and all we can do is address it when it rears its ugly head, and we don't tolerate it. The silence does not work. You can't be quiet. If I have a friend that says something that's hateful and racist, I have to call him out in fear of maybe losing his friendship. Simple as that.
Doris Gentry, you're second on this one.
That's a great question. And racism is a systemic problem all across the nation against all sorts of people, whether they're a race or whether they're an economic group. There is trouble all across America, and we have to be careful to balance the right of free speech with the different rights of people to be respectful of each other. I think it comes back to a heart condition. I think it comes back to families, helping families to be loving and embracing. I've had every nationality of children live in my home. I've had Chinese, I've had vegan, I've had gobs and many Hispanics. We have to confront with love. We have to teach. And I think it really does come back to parents teaching grace and honor and respect. And as far as denouncing, any radical group is not good. It's not going to help build up a community. It's going to tear down and hurt others. So whether you're marching downtown with a bullhorn, screaming insults and screaming profanities, or whether you are quietly doing it in your home, it's not good. Racism is not good, and we need to love and build up others and not be a part of extreme groups. Thank you.
All right, and that's time. And I'm going to use another listener-viewer question here. And Doris,
Do I get it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I jump? I got ahead of myself. Excuse me. Gerardo Martin's turn.
All right, thank you. I got to say, enough is enough. When the President of the United States cannot denounce white supremacy and the Proud Boys, I know that there's been a lot of talk, and Doris, you brought the Proud Boys to town. Do you denounce them? Do you denounce white supremacy? When I look around, and it's like, I saw Scott over at the Black Lives Matter chalk thing the other day. And do you say Black Lives Matter? Do you think Black Lives Matter? I think that's something that we all have to kind of take back and look at what we're doing here. Racism exists, and it's not, we didn't create it, but we have to be anti-racist. And a lot of times when people sit here and we talk about white supremacy is horrible and white supremacy is bad, but we got the Proud Boys coming to town. We got the Proud Boys marching here. We got things that are going on here in our own town. That doesn't sit well with a lot of people. And I think that's what we have to really focus on. And we got to be kind. We got to be kinder to each other. We got to really focus on how can we change this. I know that that systemic racism exists. We have proof of that. But how do we fix that? And how do we really stand together and unite this community so that we can all be Napans together, and it doesn't matter which color you are, you're going to be all together. And I think that's something that we got to really work on.
All right, that's time. Excuse me again for interrupting you when I shouldn't have. Sure. I'm going to give you a chance, Doris, since you were directly addressed. Do you want to respond to Gerardo's question?
Yes, I'd really like to. Gerardo Martin, I did not bring Proud Boys to town. I did not have anything to do with them coming to Napa, and I'm personally unaware that they came to Napa, although I did hear that people said they did, but I had nothing to do with it. I don't have information in my Rolodex or on my computer, or in any way am I able to contact that organization. Okay. So I publicly denounce any kind of radical extreme group like that. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to take a moment here to inject another listener question. Let's try to do a 30-second answer on this so we can squeeze
Sure.
this in. And I will start with you this time, Doris. The question is, as came up, do you fully support the Black Lives Matter movement?
You know, it's really complicated for me. I've done a lot of studying and I've done a lot of research on it. And I get really confused about that because I'm more of an all lives matter. I'm more of a brown lives matter. We certainly have more brown lives in Napa than we do black lives. And I'm just a believer that all groups of people matter. When you take our skin off, we all look exactly the same. You pull our blood, we all look the same. I believe we need to respect other people.
All right.
Thank you.
And Gerardo.
That's a really good question, and yes, I absolutely support Black Lives Matter. We've seen, with the George Floyd death, that caused a movement throughout the nation. We just had an unarmed Latino shot a couple days ago, Juan Adrian Garcia, and I mean, we really have to start to look at what are the movements that are happening right now.
Thank you. And Scott Sidgley.
Yes, of course. It's a movement, and it's growing, and it's time, and it's encompassing. And yes, I support Black Lives Matter.
I'm going to change the gears, and we're going to go to a little economic question here next. And I believe, Gerardo, you're first on this one. As mayor, what would you do to diversify the city's economic base to reduce the reliance on tourism?
That's a great question. It's a complicated question. I was reading some of the economic reports that they did just back in earlier this year, and now, of course, things are actually late last year, but now things have all changed. I think bringing tech manufacturing to town would be great. There was a time where it wouldn't work out here in Napa, but I think now it can. I think if we enhance the medical services that we have here in Napa, we have an aging population, and we really have to take care of our aging population. So I think that enhancing that would create higher paying jobs, it would create opportunities for our people that are unemployed right now and wanting to work. But more importantly, the community would be able to sustain downtown. The community would be able to sustain the businesses that are here. I think right now there's nothing wrong with the tourism. Has been our bread and butter for a long time, and we plan on continuing to enhance that. But at the same time, as a financial advisor, I need to say we need to diversify. We need to diversify our workforce so that they can be trained in the trades, so that they can be trained in other things. Construction is going to be a big thing going forward, and I think as long as we stay focused on what is the best thing for our community, that's the way that we're going to move ahead.
All right, Scott.
Yeah, that's easier said than done, to bring in light manufacturing or high tech. I've been involved with incubators and trade shows, where we try to attract a diverse economy here as far as a labor force. We've been successful in some parts, bringing in AUL, a great employer. They're in the auto industry for basically insurance and secondhand cars and new cars. The doctor's company located in Napa County. We had hoped to get them downtown. But, it's when I'm out at conference and I'm meeting other city officials around the state, we're always searching to land somebody here in Napa. We have some challenges. Housing is a challenge. Transportation is a challenge. To get in and out, and the cost of land. So it's difficult. Tourism is our industry. I like to say, people say, well, you've put all your eggs in one basket. I like to say, well, at least we have eggs, and they're in our basket. But yeah, we encourage the council, our economic development people encourage any business, all business that might want to locate in our town, and it's just an ongoing battle.
All right. I'm going to use another question from our... Oh, sorry, I did it again. Doris, your turn.
It's my turn. So I just want to say that Napa is a beautiful rural farming community. And I love that. So I don't want to change that dynamic. We have a lot of people right now moving to Napa because so many people are able to work from home. And I don't want to change that. And I don't want to see our Napa become some big conglomerate organization. I'd love to see our community remain a sleepy small town like it is. Tourism does come in, fill up the hotels, the restaurants, the wine bars, etc. But to make our community less dependent on tourism, I think we need to be more proactive with small businesses, office businesses, businesses that can work out of their homes, and offer more ways that we can support that. Also, I think it's a mistake for us to depend on tourism dollars to manage our budget. I think we should take tourism dollars like Christmas gifts, and we use those tourism dollars to pay for special projects and special things. But when we're managing our budget, just like at home, I want to manage my budget on my guaranteed monthly income, not on my peaks. You don't manage your budget on peaks, you manage your budget on valleys. So I'd like to make us less dependent on tourism dollars for our livelihood. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. And we're getting down to our last few minutes here, and we're going to get to closing statements in a moment. If you could try to give me maybe a 30-second answer on this question that came in from one of our viewers. I can't resist including this. And whose turn is it to start first? I think this time it is Doris's turn.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, is that okay? Is that where
Yeah.
we are?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll start.
The question is this, simply. What will each of you guys do for the youth of Napa? Us kids get pretty bored.
Oh my goodness. Kids do get bored, and I'm so tired of piling my car full of foster kids and driving to Scandia in Fairfield or Cordelia so that kids can have fun. We need resources for kids. We need more soccer fields, more batting cages. We need to build out our parks and have some real activities for kids. Face it, folks. Kids want to have video games and kids want to play. And while I'm at it, let's open the bowling alley. Why is the bowling alley closed when Walmart's open and the movie theater's open? Open the bowling alley. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerardo.
All right. Yeah. We have about 2,500 soccer players from youth to adults. I think having a complex, a sports complex that could house soccer players, baseball, and everything else would be fantastic. I think that's part of the thing that most people talk about when they say Napa's focused on the tourism. No, it's not focused on the tourism, but we have to refocus it onto the people that live here so that the kids have something to do. And not just the kids, but the families. Thank you.
And Scott?
Yeah, the first thing is turn off their cell phones, and then maybe they could get some initiative to go do something else. But, we're working on the Kennedy Park Master Plan for, beautiful park out there. I think we need to look at more of a public-private partnership to develop some of those sports amenities. We've been lacking in a lot of areas in that area. So it's, I think I complained as a kid, too, there was nothing to do in the 1960s. And I think it's an ongoing issue. Kids just say that. Sometimes you kick them out the door and say, come back when the street lights come on.
All right, so it's time for closing statements, and each get 90 seconds on this to wrap up. And Gerardo, it's your turn to go first.
Okay, perfect. Hey, I want to thank KVYN, KVON, and you both for hosting this. It's been a real fun event. Not as many fireworks as the vice president, or the president for that matter.
Thank you.
But here we are. I think the viewers at home got a chance to see what each of us bring as a candidate. Some campaigns have a lot of different aspects to them, money and everything else. My campaign is a grassroots campaign, and I'm working with it's people powered, and I really appreciate everybody who's come out and supported me. This campaign is very important. This campaign is for the single moms out there that are struggling, for all the kids that are moving away from Napa, going to college and thinking they're never going to be able to come back and live here because they can't afford it. This campaign is for all the families that really want to live here but are having to move away because of housing. I know housing is a big issue, and I know that housing is something that everybody's going to talk about, but we got to actually get something done. And so I hope that I've earned your support. I hope that I've earned your vote. because this is really an important campaign, and this is a very important election for the entire community. And I will be a voice for all. Thank you, and God bless.
Scott Sedgley.
Yeah, I think what I hope you see here is the contrast between the three of us, and the contrast is experience. My experience in all that I've done over my lifetime in this community shows, and what that experience has earned me is trust. To do this job, you have to be trusted, and nobody can accomplish anything in a silo. It takes on council, it takes 3 votes to do anything, but as a community regionally, it's that trust. I've earned that trust of a lot of people, with all the electeds around town and business leaders too. So that's how we move things forward, is through collaboration and working together. And you have to earn that trust through experience. And my experience is vast, and that's what separates me from the other 2 candidates. Thank you.
And lastly, it's Doris Gentry.
Well, I'm very excited to serve as our next mayor. I believe we need to open our schools safely. I believe we need to open all businesses safely. I believe we should not defund the police. I believe that we need a strong police presence in Napa. I'm not your typical politico, and I don't support that every business should be union. I'm completely opposite of Scott in that I don't want more taxes. I think we're tax burdened enough, and I know Scott has been a great advocate for taxes, and he's an advocate for unions. I think Gerardo is a great candidate. I hope to see him continue on the campaign trail. It has been great to get to know him through this race, so I can't really compare myself to him, except to say that my platform of supporting families, my platform of supporting locals, you pay the taxes that we get and we spend, and my support of the business community is important. It's important to each one of you. I am the best candidate for mayor, and I count on your vote. I thank you for your support. I'm not supported by all the politicos. That's another thing Gerardo and I have in common. We don't have all the mayors of the county and the elected county board, but we do have you, and we're counting on your vote on November 3rd. Thank you so much.
All right, we've used up all the time that we have. I want to thank all the candidates for adhering to the time limits, being civil, following the rules. It's nice to see democracy in action, at least on the local level. So thanks for that. And thanks to Wind Down Media, Will and Julissa, of course, for making this happen, and to Napa Valley TV that partnered with us for the broadcast. Stay tuned to KVON, 1440 AM or kvon.com. In just a few minutes, Larry Kamer is going to join me in the studio, and we're going to do a little post-game show on what we heard here tonight at the mayoral debate. For Wind Down Media, I'm Barry Martin. Thanks for listening and watching.